Well, starting the Stoic Dad, I thought I would take a minute to explain what I'm up to. I'm here in this little piece of nature that I just happened upon behind the car shop. So I'm sitting down with my pipe. Try to keep it lit, and I'll talk about Stoicism. And I feel like the core tenets of Stoicism have so much application to being a dad. And particularly because kids bring a certain level of difficulties into life. But they're difficulties that are the cost of having a good thing, namely a child and all that brings, fatherhood, and so on. And the way people often view kids today, especially in cities, say, is as a burden. And think of that as an economic burden. A burden on the parents themselves to think about what a kid costs. A burden on the environment, depending on one's perspective on how that works out. But you can't doubt that. Humans do consume resources, so not questioning that. But especially personally and career-wise, when you have children, there's all sorts of time commitments that you couldn't have planned for exactly. And you can't exactly factor in, this is what having a child requires. It's impossible to fully do the math. As a result, it's not something that automatically fits into having a career, advancing oneself in the workplace, or making money. It requires taking a hit in all of those areas and having some uncertainty. You're taking on responsibilities, duties, and they may require a certain number of sick days. If a child is in daycare, lots of sick days. And if you're trying to be solely focused on career and advancing in that way, you're just going to hit some roadblocks that you can't totally anticipate. You can make your best plans, but it can all fall short. But of course, having children is one of those things where the benefits are countless. What those benefits are is something I want to explore over the course of this channel, because that is one of the reasons why you undertake the difficulties and the risks and the burdens that it brings. But among them, there's simply the joy of having a child. There's the meaning that provides. There's the self-image and sense of self that comes of I'm a father, I'm an adult even. Hard to keep this lit while talking. So, as shorthand for some of those things, I'll say that it's especially difficult to have kids in the modern age. And it's because we have this sense of each individual building up a career for themselves. We have a sense that the sufferings of life are gradually being dealt with. We have new technological and economical solutions for dealing with each of the problems of life. And eventually there will be an app for everything. And having children, well, maybe it would become not even a difficulty, and then people would have even more children. But I'm not sure about that. But a lot of the hopes and dreams that are built into the sort of modern set of goals, they kind of butt up against the goal of having children and raising a family. And so I think of the idea. I've got to look back at these quotes and bring these guys in. But Seneca talking about the cost. There's so often that we have a certain reaction to something, a certain level of frustration. And Seneca says, well, you didn't factor in that. It was the cost of that thing. You know, there's the financial cost of something, say like a lawnmower, but you get frustrated when it hits a rock. Well, you should have factored in that is, you know, the time that it takes to go figure it out, the level of internet searching to figure out if you can fix it yourself. All of that was baked in, but we often didn't actually do that calculation ourselves. It's the same with kids. You say, I want kids, but let's have a kid. But you don't really know how that's going to affect your daily life. You know, you hear that it means some loss of sleep, especially when they're an infant. You know it's going to mean dividing your focus from your work or your career. But nobody really knows what all that means. Maybe some older parents do, to some extent. I wonder if folks who become a parent, you know, when they're 40, say, are sort of established in certain areas, and then, you know, have some sense. Yeah, I'm gonna make the sacrifices necessary. Probably because they have the maturity that brings. But, you know, 40, you're pushing it, especially to really just start having kids then. I mean, biologically, that's not really how we're set up, you know. And those of us who've had kids at a younger age, there's inherent trade-offs that you knew some of them, but there's so much that you didn't anticipate. And then there's things you did anticipate, like we just had our third child less than 3 weeks ago. For our purposes, I'll call him Woodstock, little guy. And, you know, I baked in, okay, we're going to start losing some sleep. And yet, each time I'm up helping the baby, and we're bottle feeding, so I'm playing my part, my emotions, my passions, they say, why can't I just go to sleep right now? What's the deal? Why is this baby crying? And it says, you know, for all the knowing beforehand, yeah, the baby cries, you're going to lose some sleep. I didn't really factor it in sufficiently. It didn't get all the way down to my core where you truly recognize, of course, the baby is crying. Of course, I have to figure out how to soothe this child, and it might take some time, and I might not understand why the baby is feeling the way the baby does. But the car company is calling, so we'll take a pause on this video. Yeah, so there's the part that you can do rationally with Stoicism, which is you can recognize, okay, I've got to adjust my expectations. life has difficulties. The cost of this good thing is these inherent difficulties that can't ultimately be separated from it. Every way you try to fix it brings trade-offs. But there's this other side that's more in the passions, the emotions, where we might, what we think, what we'll say to another person, oh, you know what? When you have kids, you're gonna lose sleep. Somehow our passions, our emotions, this other dimension of us doesn't get the message. And so there's half of Stoicism is really dealing with those passions. What I've been helped by on this side of things is the very idea of a passion. There's a contrast there with action. Go back to the Latin roots. You've got act and pass, whatever that's the root word for is suffering. There's the things that we do and the things that are done to us. So whereas the modern era, and this is really its romantic element, thinks our emotions reflect the real us, and our emotions are sort of the deep, true us. Well, according to the Stoics, the passions come upon us. They're not even our doing. They're sort of baked into this flawed and broken human nature that we inherit. And the question is how we'll respond to them. The proposal is not that there's out there some more rational people who, in the middle of the night, when the baby cries and screeches, just lack all emotion. There might be some of those, but they might be psychopathic. But when those come upon us, that's not our reason, our will, but this other faculty, the passions that beset us. You feel angry at a small child in the middle of the night. That's not my considered judgment, but it's what I feel in the moment. It comes upon me, and the question is, do I have anything to say against it? Is there a battle of thought versus passion that can take place? Can I respond to it with, this child is merely an infant. It's pre-programmed to act this way. What's happening to me now is predetermined, and the question is how I respond to it. Those thoughts in the moment can counteract the passion that we feel. Another piece of that is we're not evil for feeling that. It's there in our nature. It's a passion to which we're subject. The question is, and the moral evaluation is, of how we respond to that passion. Do we let it simply control our behavior? Or do we talk back to it? Do we offer a different perspective? Whether that's simply in the moment, or by reading a book, or by listening to something. Do we just follow the passion, or do we have something else to say to it? Can we do something other than what our passion kind of pushes us to do? So, especially right now in the infant phase with number 3, I want to work on what I'm saying to myself. Maybe I'll even turn on these videos so that I have my own voice, the voice of reason in my head when I'm feeling those passions. So there's some starting thoughts about what the Stoic Dad is all about, and about the particular phase of Stoic Dadism and fatherhood that I'm in right now. Signing off, it's the Stoic Dad.